Earl felt nervous, sitting in her pristine studio apartment as she made tea. For an antiques collector, her taste in furniture was very plain. Most of her apartment appeared to have been furnished from Walmart or the thrift store, and he supposed that if you worked with old things all day, you probably didn't want to come home to them. The one exception seemed to be the big stone fireplace in the living room, something that had likely come with the home. Earl thought it would probably be fun to roast marshmallows in front of it, or sit there and hold hands and watch a movie, especially as the weather got colder. As nice an idea as that was, it was hard to think about anything as his mind tried to come to terms with what he was about to do. Earl's grandmother had always told him that people wouldn't understand, and that many of them would be afraid if they knew. Earl was nervous, but he knew it had to be done. If he knew how much his feelings had been mirrored by hers not even half an hour before, he might not have felt such trepidation over it. She came back with tea, and as she laid out the cups between them, Earl tried to figure out how to begin. So, I've struggled with it since I was a little kid. It's not something I tell people about, because my grandmother told me that people wouldn't understand. She said if they knew, they would treat me different, so I always kept it to myself. It helps me with my job, I suppose, and it's been kind of a blessing, all things considered. Makes me afraid sometimes, but I suppose the pluses outweigh the minuses when you come right down to it. Candace spooned sugar into her tea, pursing her lips as she looked down into the liquid. You can tell me, Earl. I won't judge you. After all, you know my secrets, and you didn't seem to bat an eye at them. Earl took a deep breath and finally just came out and said it. Candace, I can see ghosts. When she laughed, Earl felt a little self-conscious. Like the little boy from The Sixth Sense. The whole I can see dead people thing. Earl laughed too, understanding that she wasn't laughing at him. Believe it or not, I've never even seen that movie. Anytime somebody talks about seeing dead people, that's always the movie that people talk about. Candace took a seat beside him on the couch, looking at him with interest as she blew on her tea. So, how does it work? Do you just see them, or can you also talk to them? Talk to them, interact with them, everything, I suppose. I have a friendship with just about every spirit in the graveyard, and they like having someone who can talk with them while they're still going through their transition into being dead. Do they... She wrinkled her nose as if trying to decide how to ask. Do they always stay at the graveyard? I mean, do any of them, move on? Yeah, sometimes. Not all of them move on, but not all of them stay either. For some reason, only about 1 in every 5 people makes a ghost. Sometimes it's unresolved conflict. Sometimes it's just a lack of anywhere else to go. It's not all atheists either. Some of them just aren't ready to move on to whatever comes next. They talk about heaven or hell or purgatory. I've even got one funny guy in the back corner that thinks he's going to Valhalla any day now. But they go in their own time. I don't think it's anything they've done. I think it's just accepting that they're not alive anymore. I'm sure there's something else out there. It's just hard for them to find it. Candace thought that over for a moment, sipping at her tea and thinking. I hate to ask, but my aunt's buried in Whispering Pines Cemetery. Is she... has she moved on? Or is she still there? Earl smiled. Your aunt was never a spirit in my cemetery. I heard she went quick. I remember the service. It was beautiful, but once she was in the ground, she never made a ghost. Like I said, some of them just don't. That seemed to make Candace feel a little better. So, you can talk to ghosts, and I'm a werewolf. I guess weirdos really do attract. She seemed to regret it after she said it, but Earl just laughed. At least they do in Cashmere, I'll admit. I've never actually had anybody to talk to about this except my grandma. She died when I was still in high school, but I was glad to see that she moved on right away. She'd spent her whole life seeing ghosts. I assume she probably didn't want to spend her afterlife being one. The two of them sat in a very loaded silence for a few minutes, sipping their tea and probably wondering what the other was thinking. Candace was wondering if Earl was freaked out that she was a werewolf. Earl was wondering if Candace would want him to talk to dead people now. They both started to speak at the same time, laughing as they told the other to go first. Laughed again, both of them so awkward at what was probably just a normal part of early relationships for most people. Sometimes you got into a relationship and she had cats and you were allergic. Sometimes you got into a relationship and he had strange hobbies that you didn't have any interest in. They both supposed that the same could be said for sometimes you're a werewolf and he can speak to the dead. Whatever the case, both of them were glad they had found the other. "I'd like to see you again, Earl, if that's okay." Earl grinned from ear to ear. "I'd like to see you again, too. I was really hoping that the whole talking to dead people thing wouldn't run you off." Candace shook her head. "If you weren't freaked out by the whole dating a werewolf thing, then I suppose you talking to dead people is really nothing to get too excited about." The two of them stared at each other for a moment, their eyes crinkling as they sat in silence. And when they both pushed forward into a very chaste kiss, it felt like fireworks exploding behind Earl's eyes. He had never stopped to think that he might be in this situation. The only women he had ever loved had died before he was born, and it had seemed foolish to think that anyone would want a gravedigger as a husband. It seemed, however, that Candace had looked past that. Perhaps working with discarded things had helped her see the value in someone who cares for the dead. "I think I'd like to go have a bath and head to bed. It's been a wonderful night, Earl, but I think I need to get some sleep before I do something that might be a little out of character for me." "Could I see you again?" "I'd like that very much." "Sure, whenever you like. Do you want to go to the town's Halloween carnival with me? I saw them setting it up a couple of days ago, and it should open next week. Charlie Guthrie will be putting on a performance in the park, and if you've never heard him sing, you're in for a treat." "That sounds lovely. I can't wait." "Okay, well, what about tomorrow? Will I see you tomorrow?" "You mean today?" Candace asked. Earl chuckled. "I guess it is pretty much today already." "I'll come by for lunch, if you're not too busy." "That sounds great. I'd better get home. Got a lot of work to do tomorrow, and it sounds like a pretty gal is coming over for lunch." They kissed again, the same slow, delicious pressing of lips, and then Earl got up and said his goodbyes. He bumped into a fellow on the way in, but he barely noticed him on his way out the front door to the apartment complex, offering a distracted "excuse me" as he made his way out into the night. He probably wouldn't have noticed the gun, but if he had, it might have saved a lot of trouble later. The man in the large coat and the tip-down fedora turned and looked after Earl, but decided to move on as the gravedigger headed home. He had hoped he wouldn't have to involve civilians. The paperwork would be hellish if he had to put a bullet in the town's gravedigger. The black site did not like collateral damage. "Wake up, kid. Something's afoot." Marcus sat up, his eyes still heavy, to find Grandpa standing over him in full gear. He had his heavy coat, his walking stick, his canteen full of holy water, and he'd even donned his floppy black hat that made him look a little bit like an aged Van Helsing. He was ready for war, and Marcus wondered what fresh hell they were about to press into now. "What's up, Gramps? What's the trouble?" "I don't know, but there's something afoot. My senses tell me we're needed, and I think we should head out. Great powers are converging, and it's time for us to move." "What the hell does any of that mean?" Marcus said, sitting up and rubbing at his eyes. "It means get up, lazy bones, and let's get cracking. The game's afoot, Watson, and we need to get stepping. Meet me at the truck in 5. We might just make it if you hurry up." As Grandpa stumped off, Marcus sighed and went to get his gear. The last time Gramps had done this, it was to fight fey creatures, and Marcus hoped it wouldn't be this serious this time. He sent Glimmer a text. He'd gotten her a phone after the last time this had happened, and let her know he was off on some sort of grandpa shenanigans again. She was in the north, attending her sister's wedding, and she was likely to be unhappy when she discovered he'd gotten up to adventure without her. Marcus chuckled. He'd just have to make it up to her, somehow, he supposed. Sheriff Guthrie was dozing in his cruiser when someone suddenly yelled for him to wake up. He jerked awake, startled out of sleep by the sudden noise, and the jerk caused him to spill coffee on his pants leg. He cursed and wiped at it as the old ghost in the back seat laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. "That's what you get for napping on the job." Guthrie sighed and turned around as he looked at Sheriff Masterson with all the anger and pomp that he could muster, the cold coffee soaking into his pants, ruining the illusion somewhat. "Seriously, what is it you want?" "I already told you what I want, and it's for you to put me to rest." "You say that all the time, but you have yet to tell me how to accomplish this. I could be Sherlock fucking Holmes and still have no clue what it is you want. If you want me to put you to rest so damn badly, then why not help me out and let me know what you're after?" He could see the old ghoul perched in the back of the cruiser, looking just as comfortable as he had in life. He was a little more rotten these days, a little less put together, but he was still the same man. He had his hands folded in his lap, and he smiled as if a particularly slow student had finally understood the assignment. "The things we saw in the woods on the night I died, the things that don't like that symbol you took off of me, that's what we're after. You have to figure out what it is that those things want. And if you don't, then I'm afraid the music is never gonna stop. I'm only one person. I can't fight things like that." The old sheriff just looked at him doggedly. "Then you better turn in that badge and get out of town, because you're not the man for the job." Sheriff Guthrie started to ask him what any of that meant when dispatch sent a notice over the wire for him. All units, shots fired at the Elsmay Arms. Report, shots fired at the Elsmay Arms. Sheriff Guthrie, do you copy?" Sheriff Guthrie grabbed at the handset. 10-4, I need the exact location, he said, putting the car in gear as he headed out with lights and sirens blaring. "Apartment 27, neighbors called to report shots fired and the sound of a scuffle. The owner is a Candace Sutherland." Sheriff Guthrie gritted his teeth. This night just kept getting better and better. He headed for the Elsmay Arms, praying that he wasn't about to arrest the town's gravekeeper for doing something extremely stupid, or the owner of Cashmere Sundries for putting him into an early grave. As Corey came to her door, he heard someone humming as they turned on the bathwater in the next room. Excellent. She was going to take a bath, and he might be able to take her unaware. He tried the door, but was unsurprised to find it locked. He checked his weapon, a service issue 1911, and screwed on the silencer that might ensure that he had time to run before her neighbors had the sheriff on his way. With few options left, he knocked on the door. He hadn't decided what he would say, but he thought he might be able to come up with something on the fly. He just needed her distracted long enough for him to get his weapon out and put 2 or 3 rounds into her. Then it would be all over but the crying. He knocked twice, and when the door creaked open, he hissed a little. She'd put the chain up, but he supposed that was to be expected. She was standing there in a towel, looking surprised, and when she saw him, her surprise turned to fear. Who's there? I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am, but I've got news about someone who's been hurt. If I could just come in for a moment, I could tell you. It's not Earl, is it? If I could come in for a moment, ma'am, I'll be happy to tell you what's happened. She thought about it for a moment, clearly torn, but she must have finally decided on propriety over urgency. I'm not really dressed to receive company right now. If you need to tell me something, you can tell me right here at the door. Corey smiled and reached into his coat for what she probably assumed were orders. He had believed he had a clean draw on the weapon, but when the silencer got stuck in his pocket, she clearly noticed what was going on. She screamed and attempted to slam the door, catching the silencer in between the door and the jamb as he shot twice. The silencer was bent, the force crumpling it inward, and as it came free of the weapon, the door slammed in his face. Corey couldn't believe this was happening, and as she pushed deeper into the apartment, he kicked the door, one rattling shot that sent it flying open against the chain. He kicked it again, harder this time, and as the chain broke and the door came open, Corey walked into the apartment and swung his gun from side to side as he searched for her. She had to be here somewhere. The apartment wasn't really big enough for her to hide, and that's when his eyes fixed on the bathroom. He could hear her in there, talking to someone, probably the police, and one sharp shot to the doorknob was enough to send it swinging inward. He came walking into the bathroom like an action movie hero, ready to slay the fearsome beast that had been troubling the town. The black site sends its regards, bitch. But as he leveled the gun to fire, he realized he had taken too long. Something was happening to her, something he had been told about but had never actually seen. Her skin was beginning to blister, her flesh beginning to bubble, and as the transformation took her, he was suddenly very aware of why teams normally went on assignments like this. The sound of cracking bones and shifting vertebrae was enough to make his skin crawl, and as she assumed her monstrous form, Agent Corey was aware that he was probably about to die. He'd always known it could be a possibility, but if he was going out, then he was going out shooting. He put 6 rounds into the werewolf, but the creature just kept coming. He had aimed for the 7th, but she buried him in a mass of teeth and claws before he could get his shot properly set. His death was quick, quicker than he deserved, but Candace never had a chance to enjoy the kill. One of her neighbors had called the cops after the first gunshot had opened her bathroom door, and they announced themselves loudly before coming inside. All of them had a half a second to see the werewolf before she was away, breaking through the bathroom door before disappearing into the night.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.